Hello, friends. Star Performance Consulting presents second episode of podcast Corporate Banters with DK. Today we have a very special guest who has spent last 2 decades in supply chain and procurement. He has gone through multiple cycles of crisis management and has seen this function evolve significantly over last 2 decades. He has worked in multiple consumer and automotive industry and has created an unique identity for himself as supply chain expert. I extend a very warm welcome to Atin Kumar, who is Global Supply Chain Director in Automiv. Atin, thank you for being with us and sharing your precious thoughts with us.
Thanks, Deepak. It's very nice to be here, and I'm glad that I will be able to share some of my knowledge today.
Fantastic, Atin. So let's get started without further ado. What has been the significant disruptive changes in supply chain industry in the last 15 to 20 years as per you?
Supply chain has gone from regional to global, and then in the last 2, 3 years, it has been moving again towards regional. If you go back, at the start of the century, so if we invariably go back to year 2000, everything was moving towards east, specifically China, in terms of manufacturing. And then that was a trend followed by almost all the industries where overnight the China local offices started opening up. It went with such a pace that by 2008, when there was this financial crisis, more than 60% of the global demand was fulfilled by China factories. Just take example of iPhone, which came into market in 2007. First year sales for iPhone was around a million unit, all manufactured in China. And since then, more than 1.8 billion iPhones have been sold globally, with less than 5% being manufactured outside of China.
Oh, wow.
So you can see the scale of manufacturing and supply chain capabilities which were developed in China or which are still there in China. And it continues to impact all the industries. It continues to impact any sector, be it industrial, be it consumer, be it automotive. This was the general trend. Now, if you specifically talk in terms of disruption, then use of software in different section of supply chain has enabled a lot of corporations to save a lot of money and keep customers happy by doing more with less. For example, if you talk logistics today, with the right technology, you can track a container in middle of the ocean and predict their arrival time within hours accuracy, which makes supply chain more predictable, helps to cut waste by ensuring the right usage of resources.
Right. I think Atin, you have made some really good points. One thing which I've learned about supply chain, and after having seen that in multiple companies, is there are of course two sides to supply chain. One is the buy side, and one is basically the sales side, right?
Correct.
And one thing which I've learned about the supply chain profession is it's one of the most thankless job. No matter what the circumstances is, you will have to deliver it. And when you deliver it, and no matter how much amount of effort you put in, ultimately the credit goes to the sales team, to the general managers, to anybody else in the
Oh,
world.
well, supply chain has always been the cost center in the company. So,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
never going to change.
So I thought that is something which should have evolved. Looks like it hasn't evolved in the last 15, 20 years. I do have definitely a lot of respect for supply chain team because I have seen firsthand, especially in my last organization when I was working for Motorola, how people work day and night to basically make things happen and ensure the delivery happens on time. At the same time, we have the right materials and procurement things. And in general, what we have seen is that we get ordered towards the end of the quarter, and the
Right.
fulfillment has to happen in that short span of time. And that is the most critical part, and where I think most of the supply chain people would be burning midnight oils, just like finance team. In fact, that reminds me, there used to be only two teams which used to be sitting in office till late in the night. It used to be finance and supply chain.
Oh, I fully concur with you, Deepak. Okay. And between finance and supply chain, it's a love-hate relationship
Yeah,
because see,
absolutely.
we have to guess cost savings, and
Yeah.
you have all the tools to not give those cost savings because you have accrued that cost somewhere else.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree. Moving on, COVID,
Yeah.
2020 COVID came in, and I think that disrupted a lot of things. One of the function which I personally believe got severely impacted during COVID was supply chain,
Correct.
right? Because of things not moving from one country to another country. But I don't think the pressure of sales came down or pressure of manufacturing came down. We still had to manufacture, we still had to get the stuff to the client. What are the changes you saw in the industry during COVID? and whether it was positive change, whether it was something which has impacted us for a long term, which is going to niggle us over a period of time. Like, what's your perspective on that?
Or, COVID changed a lot of things, Deepak. If we go back, at the start of the COVID, relationship between suppliers and companies what started to given the first priority. So, in 2020, when COVID hit, everyone started going back to the route of, okay, where is my relationship? Where are my strategic partners? How do I still support them so they continue to support our business? And then we had to deal with unpredictability of the situation as countries, regions were being shut down due to pandemic from one day to another. On a positive note, every CEO started to know about their supply chain. So, in all this
I'm
crisis,
sure
one
about it.
major thing which has happened is CEOs have started knowing the importance of supply chain
Absolutely.
and they have started spending time with important suppliers, with
Yeah.
strategic suppliers, which makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Focus shifted from getting the lowest price to ensure the resiliency of supply chain. And you will hear, today this word resiliency a lot because this was one thing which now I can see almost every big corporation is chasing around. Okay, how resilient is my supply chain? What if there is another COVID, another pandemic? How do we continue to still serve our customers, continue to make money, and then make sure that our employees remain safe? Lastly, as with all the industries, what COVID did good was the software adaptation on the supply chain side. And this is, I'm not talking just for, let's say, multinational companies. We see in our supply base software adaptation being happening in a very, very small scale companies. Overnight, everyone started using Zoom, started using Microsoft Teams. There was a seamless transfer of documentation. We started auditing factories over video calls. So yes, there were a lot of positive changes, but it goes without saying last 18 months have been the nightmare for any supply chain professional.
I'm sure about it. Now, China in the last few years, as you briefly mentioned as well, has been the big boy in the supply chain industry, right? I mean, a lot of manufacturing effectively happens in China, with be it iPhone, be it any kind of niche products, to
Or
even
just name anything.
just name anything, exactly, right? And they're one of the biggest exporters in most of the stuff. I mean, I understand that even the stars on a Christmas tree, they also come from China. I mean, they're so big in terms of exporting and having that in ecosystem of supply chain. The world has moved on post COVID, right? Apart from China, if I can say so, they still are following a different policy as compared to other parts of the world. And that has definitely, I think, created some amount of tension in the supply chain. Are you seeing a trend where things are moving out of China, or you still believe that China is going to play a very big role? It's just a matter of time when things are going to turn around for China as well.
Oh, okay. So I would take this question, in two parts. Is China going to play a big role? Definitely. We have so much of supply chain dependency in China because, we are not talking about just the tier ones. We're talking about tier two, tier three, tier four supply chain. And then there is an ecosystem.
Yeah.
I would just give you a very simple example. So, everyone in North America wanted to own a Peloton bike, right? And it was being manufactured in China. Even if those kind of bikes we can manufacture in North America, we can manufacture in Europe, the tooling used to make those bikes. So the basic tooling, what you can get in another regions like in 4 weeks or 8 weeks, you can get in straight 10 days in China.
Oh, really?
And that's the biggest difference for China as an ecosystem for manufacturing basis.
Sure.
So it is just not, you can move factory overnights from, okay, I'm doing a finished good manufacturing and I will start manufacturing it in, let's say, in North America. But it's all about what is behind those factories. Tier two, tier three, tier four supply chains is what China is very good at. The ecosystem is very good in China. So yes, China is going to definitely play a big role. Now, after pandemic, yes, this is a trend which actually started with the onset of tariff war between US and China. So a lot of companies have started looking beyond China. So let's say, Southeast Asia becomes a very big opportunity hub for a lot of manufacturers who want to branch out of China. We are seeing very big investments being done in Vietnam, in Indonesia, in Malaysia. So, and beyond Southeast Asia, India as a region presents a lot of opportunity. We still have to see, how much we will be able to capitalize.
Sure.
In my view, we will see some of the supply chain moving into regions in the next 5 years, but I don't foresee that China is going to lose their supremacy position anytime.
I absolutely agree with you. In fact, it's a question of ecosystem. What they have created over last few decades
Correct.
is going to be very hard to replace. Any other country who wants to really challenge China, they will have to invest that many number of decades, if not more,
Right.
to come out with that kind of an ecosystem. So it's not an overnight thing. Absolutely, you're right. Spot on. Now, we keep on hearing about these supply chain disruptions. It's all over in the news. Anything you pick up from Wall Street Journal to Economist to anything, the only thing we just speak about is supply chain disruption. Now, of course, COVID played an important role. Then Russia-Ukraine war is playing an important role. Of course, China lockdown currently is playing an important role. But what's the real story? Because at the end of the day, while prices have gone up, I do understand that because of a certain supply chain disruption. And it's not only about the consumer price index, it's also about other stuffs like even automotive industry, we are seeing parts not being available, cars prices are going up, so many other things. But in general, the people at the ground level, while they are feeling the pinch of price going up, but they're not saying like, I don't see that if I want to eat an apple, I'm not getting an apple today to eat, right? I mean, I'm still getting what I need, right? So what's the
Right.
real
You
story?
just need to pay more.
Exactly.
Well, that's the impact, right? So when COVID came in, right, there were few things which impacted, and then it was a domino impact. So COVID came in 2020 around Q1, Q2. And demand came back very quickly in Q3, Q4. People had a lot of disposable cash because everyone was riding on this stock market wave. So people started paying more for the things. Problem was make it available. Electronic sector was particularly hit by the availability of certain semiconductor parts. And that's where this whole story started, and it started to impact even our daily groceries. Because see, daily groceries, we stay in an island state, right? We are exporting. I believe, if I'm not wrong, Singapore imports food from 172 countries out
Wow.
of the 192 countries on the map. And all these things actually come through containers. All these things
Yeah.
actually come on ocean, right?
Yeah.
So with the port congestion, COVID hitting,
Yeah.
it was always that a backlog would get created. Demand was not going down. And then a domino impact was created wherein, okay, if you want priority shipment, you have to pay more. Very simple example, if I have to talk in layman terms, a 40 feet container from China to go into Los Angeles port, if you have really good rates, it would cost you like around 3,000 before COVID. Today the same container cost you around $16,000.
Heard about it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
So it's 5 times the cost. You're still shipping the same goods.
Yeah.
So somewhere this price has to be
Yeah, exactly.
built into the final
Exactly.
product cost. And then I see 2021 as an year, as a black swan year, wherein so many events happened, which were like, happening once in 50 years.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Texas snowstorm. It came in February 2021. Now, we haven't heard about a snowstorm in Texas ever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it came
Yeah.
out of nowhere when the market is picking up, demand
Yeah.
is picking up, snowstorm comes, and you have to, you had very big semiconductor foundries which had to go, actually, which has to stop operation for almost 3 to 4 weeks before it can come back again. Suez Canal blockage in the same period in Q1 2021. Never ever Suez Canal has been blocked, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this was another black swan event. Taiwan drought. 2021 was the first year in the last 50 years in Taiwan wherein they had the lowest amount of rainfall.
Wow.
And this happened in Q2.
Yeah.
So, you move from snowstorm, you move from some fire in supplier factories in Japan,
Yeah.
you come into droughts, and then Malaysia COVID impact, which
Yeah.
happened in May, June, July timeframe. And Malaysia, as a region, has a lot of what I would call back end activities on the electronic supply chain. Everything got stopped.
Yeah.
We came out of that crisis.
Mm-hmm.
China started showing a shortage of coal
Mm-hmm.
in Q3 and Q4. So there were power disruptions because everyone was expecting the winters to go hard. So we had to save coal for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, everything a one of kind event, but all these events were happening in series.
Mm-hmm.
So you come out of one crisis, you go into another crisis.
Yeah.
And somewhere down the line, you can talk about any industry. You can talk about automotive, you can talk about consumer, you can talk about industrial. At the end of the day, with the rising software and digitization, our electronic part usage is going up in almost all the devices. So somewhere either you are hit in the beginning or you are hit in the end, but it is very difficult that you are not getting impacted.
Yeah.
And that's why, I go back to my previous comment that a lot more focus on resiliency is what companies are focused today.
Sure. Now, you made a very hitting remark that last couple of years that we have been seeing one event after another, and those event had some negative impact, and we have not seen such event in our generation at least,
Right.
right? I mean, be it pandemic, be it Texas snowstorm. After having gone through so many things, do you believe is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
Oh, definitely, definitely. There is always light, light at end of the tunnel. In general, I'm a very optimistic person. So yes, but there has been a major capacity expansion which is happening. Thankfully, pandemic situation is improving across the world.
Yeah.
Supply chains are opening up. People can now travel more frequently. So yes, there is definitely an improvement with all what is happening right now in US, with in terms of investment in semiconductor. I think yes, we should see that we are going back to a normal situation in next 12 to 15 months.
Okay.
Now, this was my comment before we went into Russia Ukraine war.
Okay.
So now with Russia Ukraine war, adding another dimension of food security, in the mind of people.
Yeah.
So far, between 2020 and 2021, we all were very much speaking about industrial shortage.
Sure.
We were not ever concerned about food shortage.
Yeah.
So that's another dimension which is now happening, and you can see supply chains getting impacted because people are feeling not very confident about their future. So yes, I sincerely believe from an industrial shortage point of view, we should be back to normal in the next 12 to 15 months. The real impact of Russia-Ukraine war is still to be seen.
Yeah, I agree. And that reminds me, when the COVID started, everybody started doing a lot of simulations, a lot of scenario plannings. And first of all, everybody believed that COVID is going to get over in 6 months. And after that, life is going to be back to normal. And then COVID went beyond 6 months. That's when the simulation planning started. And I remember there was some McKinsey report that the real impact of COVID will come in after the pandemic has become an endemic. And how true it is. Like
We are seeing it every day now.
exactly, we are seeing it now every day. And I don't even think that the full impact of COVID has come in front of us even now. But yeah, we all have to be optimistic, and I believe there is light at the end of the tunnel. What time that light is going to shine on us,
Still to be seen.
still to be seen. Let's talk about automotive industry. And I think that's one of the industry which has got really impacted. Even in Singapore, we are seeing the second-hand car market is
Booming.
really hot right now, right? I mean, everybody is going after that market. We are seeing the COE prices shooting up like anything. So there is definitely shortage of supply in this particular industry. What do you think are the reasons and how it is coping with all these disruptions?
Yeah, automotive industry, I would say that it is going through a very big change because everywhere there are talks about electrification of vehicles. So going from internal combustion engines to EVs or electric vehicles. And then with At the same time, the electronic content in every car is increasing. So cars are becoming really very smart. They
Sure.
are going towards, self-driving model, like Mercedes last year, Daimler got a level 3 approval, so that you can actually drive without your hands on the steering wheel on any highway until like the speed of 60 kilometers per hour, and car
Really?
drives it
Okay.
itself, right? So yes, just coming back, automotive industry at the cusp of change, got hit by pandemic, and then all the major OEMs have to really very quickly realign their strategies onto how they keep on making money.
Sure.
So the one of the primary reason in any country second-hand car market is increasing is because OEMs are unable to fulfill the complete demand, and then they are diverting all of their resources towards the model they can sell, and they make more money.
Sure.
And from an industry perspective, what COVID changed in automotive industry is there was a very long cycle of change in automotive industry. So, automotive industry has always been considered as a very stable industry, not very frequent changes. But in the last 2 years, right now, we see an increased appetite from OEMs, that okay, if you don't have part X, can we use part Y? What can we do in finding more suppliers? What can we do in bringing supply chain near to my factories? So a lot more of that kind of flexibility is what we are seeing from the OEMs. And coupled with this, we all know, what Tesla is doing. So Tesla changed the complete model of automotive industry by actually started designing their softwares, their hardwares by themselves. So a lot of this work in a traditional automotive company was being outsourced to tier one companies. This got changed by Tesla. So now everybody is starting to take supply chain in their control. So that's what, these are the major changes what we see in automotive industry. And I think automotive industry is exactly at the stage where mobile phone industry was in 2006 2007, when Apple first brought in iPhone. And you can see, right, how quickly we all had touchscreen phones, in 4 or 5 years, and then they became mainstream.
Exactly.
Now no one has a push button phone. Everyone has, phones have become smarter than basically human beings. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I think in the coming next 5 years, automotive industry is also going to change in the same way.
Absolutely. In fact, I was reading a report that iPhone has just completed 15 years,
Right.
and how they have disrupted the entire mobile phone. And I think you made a very telling remark and very apt remark, at this opportune time. Moving on, I mean, we have spoken about supply chain. I think now let's talk a little bit about talent. What would be your advice to professionals who want to become supply chain experts?
Okay, so I'll start by giving you some fun facts. So since the pandemic struck and everyone started to know about supply chain, so there has been a steady increase in young professional, young students actually applying for supply chain internship, or actually doing graduates program in supply chain.
Oh, really?
And we see this by sheer increase in number of applications now we got for internship from different universities in US and Europe. And you won't believe, it has gone up by almost 30%.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so if anyone wants to be in supply chain, this is the time that okay, you can manage the crisis, you know what's going around, and you are actually able to correlate things which are happening across the world with you. My advice will be twofold, right, for any young professionals. When you start working, become the subject matter expert, because supply chain is a very vast field.
Yeah.
You have logistics, you have manufacturing, planning, procurement. So become the subject matter expert by actually doing the day-to-day operational work in start of the career, and then branch out into different subcategories, which enables you in 3 to 5 years of time to have a 360-degree view of the complete
Right.
supply chain. And then you are able to understand more, relate to the things more, what is happening on this end, which is impacting on the other end. The second thing, which a lot of people actually ignore, be technology savvy. A lot of times we just do the same mistake. Oh, supply chain means I am having good relationship with my suppliers. I know this category, or I know I have got a good price. Be technology savvy, because future supply chains will be driven by softwares. Yeah. And there will be a lot of manual work which will get eliminated just by implementing software. Right. And the pandemic has actually proved, right? We all, with all software digitization happening in the industry, it has helped us a lot. So that would be my second advice: be technology savvy. What you're saying, it really makes sense, because one is technology savvy, and secondly, to know the different aspects of supply chain. And that basically tells me there's a cascading effect of knowing the business as well. Because unless you know the business, unless you know the flow and ins and outs, it's very difficult to basically being a supply chain professional. Because I believe that, and in fact, it's not only a question of supply chain function, it's a question of each and every function nowadays, that it's no longer a back end function. Every function has to come to the forefront and really understand those nuances of the business to drive the real meat of what is the purpose. Right. In fact, your funny banter on the increase in the resumes, that reminds me that people always find opportunity in crisis, and it looks to be a perfect example of that. Oh, right? Yeah, definitely, definitely. Moving on, right? Something on you. If you don't want to share with us, I'm going to skip this question, but I would love if you share something. Tell us about one professional mistake which you made in your career, which in hindsight you feel you could have avoided. And if yes, if you have made that mistake, not necessarily you have to make that mistake, what would be your advice to the freshers how to avoid such mistakes? When actually, I started my career, it was, I would always think about productivity means doing more. So how I can be more productive? By doing more. Oh, okay, give me more work. Yeah. Oh, I can do this. Can you run this program? Yes, I can run it. And that would give me a thorough understanding of different functions. Yeah. But over the course of time, what I have realized is productivity is all about deletion. It is not about addition. So my advice to the young guys who are, starting career, because everyone forces you to be more productive, yeah, generate more performance, do this, do that. So when you are negotiating anything, you can be productive by asking very few but critical requirements, yeah, rather than asking starts and moves. So this was one professional mistake which I kept on doing for quite some time. Okay. And I definitely, now I have learned my lesson in a hard way. But okay, something which everyone should avoid. I can tell you, I think we all have made that mistakes. In the pursuit of growing our career, we believe that more is better, and we kind of took so much that we burnt ourselves. But one thing which I'm seeing in our latest generation, which are, let's call it millennials, they are very self-conscious, very, very self-conscious. They know what they want, how they want it, and work for them is not an end. It's just a means to an end. Absolutely great advice, Atin. I'm done with my questions, Atin. We are going to have a little bit fun now. Okay. It's going to be a rapid fire round. Oh. Whatever comes to your mind, just go for it. There's no right or wrong answer to it. Okay? All right. What's your passion? My passion, music. Fantastic. What would be your alternate career if not supply chain? Oh, I would like to always become a DJ. That's really unique. In fact, you can do that as a part time as well. Yeah, I can, but with wife stops you, I understand. Engineering or finance? Engineering always. Ah, I don't like that answer. One word which describes India. Growing. One word which describes United States. Confused. That's amazing. Atin, you have been a fantastic invited to this particular podcast. All your answers were great. You really gave great insights. In fact, I learned a lot about supply chain, though coming from finance, as you said, love and hate relationship. We don't know the depth of supply chain, but as I said, like I do have a lot of respect for this function, having seen them work very closely. You brought in some real examples. I'm sure audience would love it and they would gain a lot out of this particular conversation. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your time and I hope that it has been worth your time as well. Oh, definitely. Thanks a lot, Deepak, for this invitation. And yes, I'd be happy to be here.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Atin.
you.
Have a good day.